business. So I wanted to talk about material costs in this industry, where costs have gone, where the margins are, a little bit of the P&M rate pay model, and kind of the future of the materials portion of the claim. So really, I see two issues. It's a rising floor and a capped ceiling. You have rising costs. No one's a stranger to it. Q1 of every year, every single manufacturer has somewhere between a 6 and 12% price increase on their entire catalog. And then that gets pushed through distribution down to you guys. On the output side of the business, you have a P&M rate. Those rates are excellently suppressed, and they don't really add up. And they don't accommodate for the variability in modern day vehicle repair. You can't just tell me every paint coat on God's green earth somehow is magically, $45 a paint hour. I'm going to use that number 45 a lot. That's the national average, or 46. That's the national average per Labor Rate Hero. So I'm just going to use the national average number. Don't know what your rates are here. I'm not going to ask about them. I don't want to know. So rising costs and a stagnant rate pay model. So I kind of wanted to look at these trends over the last 25 years to see where both of these have gone. And I can't look at the price of everything everywhere all the time. So I picked a particular paint commodity, clear coat. Every car that gets fixed is going to get top coated at one point or another, whether it's light, heavy, repair, replace, you're going to shoot some clear on it. Almost always comes in a gallon. So back in the early 2000s, name brand list price on a gallon of clear used to go for sub $100. I wasn't there, I was in third grade, but allegedly, per that list, $85 for a gallon of clear, and that's name brand stuff. In 2011, after the first large inflationary hike of the American economy, you're seeing middle 200s. Fast forward to 2024, 2025, you're seeing $500, $600, $700 a gallon list price on clear. So some really precipitous increases over the last 25 years for pricing. What has the P&M rate done in that same period of time? These are just some examples I've taken, representative of national averages. In the early 2000s, the P&M rate was in the teens, 16, 17, 18. 2006, we got into the 20s. 2011, we're in the high 20s, low 30s. 2023, we're in the high 30s, low 40s. And again, modern day national average is $46 for P&M. Some states are a little higher, some states are a little lower. It varies everywhere, but that's the increase on rate. So what does this look like when you plot it all together? I've done what we in the collision industry don't often do, which is math. I put it all on a table, plotted out over 25 years. So as you can see, P&M rate is going up, awesome. Clear coat average price is going up, and that's averaged across all 5 major paint manufacturers for the years that I had data. So I took each gallon of clear off of each list price sheet for each paint manufacturer each year for the last 25 years, because I have nothing better to do. And if you plot those two together, you'll see there's a clear departure in those curves. So pricing, that green line, is going up much faster than the P&M rate. Actually, when you plot them together, P&M rate basically looks flatlined. Now, I wouldn't expect the P&M rate to follow clear coat. We use a lot of sprayable commodities to refinish and repair vehicles, but I'd expect there to be some relationship between the two. And if you actually plot them as a function of one another, which is that graph on the bottom right, that is P&M rate divided by average price over time. So that is the exchange rate between the refinish hour and its ability to buy you a gallon of clear. So in the early 2000s, at a value of just above 0.3, that means 3 refinish hours got you a gallon of clear. Fast forward to today, 2025, at a value of less than 0.1, it's actually 0.07 if you could see the table. You need more than 10 refinish hours to do the exact same thing. Nowhere here am I talking about the economy or the US dollar or inflation. That's literally refinish hour for product exchange rate over 25 years. 300% degradation. I can perform that same analysis for sealer, primer, adhesion promoter, a bunch of other sprayables, and get the exact same trend directions. Obviously slightly different graph, but the same trends. And I've deliberately left out base coat, which, if you're unaware, is the most expensive item per gram that you're going to dispense on a vehicle. Now, base coat's a little more complicated because it varies quite a bit depending on the paint line and the paint code. This is what I said before. Not every car that rolls into a shop is going to be subject to the same rate. Now, you might think, oh, well, it averages out. Look at the standard deviation on the further ends of this. So I don't have data going all the way back to the year 2000, but I have it as early as 2011. You guys won't be able to see this that well, but I'll just read it out to you. Color without a price code in 2011, this is your cheapest colors per pint on this particular paint line, which I'm going to leave nameless so I don't pick on any paint companies. In 2011, a pint of the cheapest color on a price category index was $65 per pint. A Z code, which is your most expensive color per pint on this paint line, is $160. Not bad. Fast forward 14 years, just 14, not 25, that same color without a price category, that cheap pint, is now nearly $200, and that Z code is nearly $500. These are the exact same colors on the exact same paint line, the exact same price categories. Not only is there roughly a 300% increase, a little more than 300% increase, there's also a 250-degree of variance depending on the color itself, what price category it fits into. That's a huge swing of variance dependent on color. Now, you could say, well, I'll get a couple of refinish hours extra for a tri-coat, since I can't get a rate adjustment on color. It could be the case that you have a tri-coat where both layers are in a low price category and you have a seemingly normal, nothing's normal nowadays, you can get a normal two-stage that's in a Z code category that is more expensive even though it's less than half the volume. So more expensive two stages than tri-coats. And it happens all the time, but we only get triggered for some action if it's a tri-coat or a quad coat. It's not necessarily the number of layers, it's the contents of those layers. So base coat's even more complicated because there's too much variability. Why is this happening? I've cleverly named this slide behind the culprit. Money printer go Bert. So as with many problems, it begins with the federal government, more specifically the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and has no reserves, but it has the explicit authority in this country to print money. I mean, nothing I'm saying is not factual. It prints money. You create money. When you create money, when you increase the supply of money, you decrease its value. If I inflate the supply of any commodity in the market, its value is going to go down. So I increase the money supply, money value goes down. I then go out into the market and I try to buy commodities that have stable value, whether it's a gallon of clear, a barrel of petrol, dozen eggs, whatever, it doesn't matter. That thing has the same utility, has the same supply, has the same demand, has the same value, but I'm buying it with money that's worth less than it was, say, 5 years ago, pre-COVID. I hate that phrase, post-COVID era, but that's the reality of it. So what does that do to the supply chain? You have the mining operation that needs to get some type of stuff out of the ground, petrol and minerals, that's what everything is at the end of the day. They're going to pay more for mining permits, equipment, labor, transportation. That's going to increase their input costs. So they're going to pass it on to the manufacturer, your paint company, your 3M, Norton, Sem, Merca, the people who make product numbers, who make products. They're going to pay more for precursor material, which means they're going to pass it on to distribution, and distribution is going to pass it on to you. Now, for the first step in this little chain here, you have to deal with a third-party bill payer who doesn't want to pay you, which I'm sure you guys know who that is, right? It's an insurance company. Now, on the other end of that chasm, where our profitability lies, the claims environment, you have insurers raising premiums on insureds to the tune of 20 to 40% on home and auto, and these are people without any particular underwriting risk. Don't take me as an example. I have a lot of speeding tickets, but people with no underwriting risk paying 20 to 40% more across the board. And if you don't believe me on the inflation numbers, this is directly from the Fed's website. That one at the top is M2 money supply in the last 25 years, shooting right up to the moon. The second one is inflation as a percent. So even when it's going down, prices are still going up. They're just not going up as fast. And then graph 3 is CPI. That's Consumer Price Index. That just means consumers are paying more for stuff than they ever have before. And being in the industry that we're in, we're affected a little disproportionately. We're not talking about a dozen eggs, we're talking about a gallon of clear. Turns out inflation affects chemical companies a little bit more than, grocery stores. So that's the input side of the problem. What's the output side? I'm going to say rate pay a lot. That's database generated refinish hours multiplied by rate equals materials. Well, not really. It's not that accurate. It probably didn't matter 25 years ago because the rate wasn't so bad and material costs weren't objectively insane, but those are both the case now. So what do I mean it wasn't accurate? Take these two cars at the bottom, right? These two little clip art vehicles. Assume it's the same year, make, model, same options, same paint code, same everything, but they present with slightly different damages. One is lightly scratched down the side, one is hit down the side. In both of those scenarios, objectively, I'm going to use different amounts of abrasives, different amounts of filler, different amounts of glaze, primer, sealer, base. The only thing I'm going to use the same amount of is clear, because it's going to be full clear for panel coverage on a repair. Now, different materials, right? Different quantities. If I click on those panels in my estimating platform, I'm going to get the same refinish values multiplied by the same rate. I'm going to get the same P&M output. Whether you're at panel adjacent deduction or at full refinish, doesn't matter. You're going to get the same material outputs on both of those jobs in a conventional platform. There's no variance in the P&M rate also for different OE requirements. Obviously, every chassis is a little bit different. Different OEMs have different requirements, adhesives, sealants, urethanes, foams. 50 years ago, all you needed to fix a car was sandpaper, filler, paint. These things have gotten a little more complicated than that, so different OE requirements. Different paint codes. I just showed you a price category index as an example from one paint make. Every paint line by every manufacturer has a very similar index with multiple categories for base pricing. And then finally, part numbers. There's no variance in your rate regardless of whether or not you use the most expensive or the cheapest possible product in your market area. Example I like to bring up is I have clients in Massachusetts, I have clients in California. Their rates differ by a factor of 2. Massachusetts has historically low rates. They buy the exact same part numbers from the exact same manufacturers, and they have the exact same list price. List price is nationally based, so no variance there. Now, unfortunately, what I do see is a lot of shops relegating themselves to cheaper and cheaper product lines to maintain a margin. What you're doing there is instead of paying for it in value, you're going to be paying for it with additional liability when that clear coat doesn't quite look the same next summer. So I don't like seeing people flock to cheaper product lines. You should get paid for what you used. No model for ancillaries. So obviously the miscellaneous section of our estimates have become a little bit more, let's say, creative, but some of the values that we've kind of silently agreed to don't really make any sense anymore. My favorite example is corrosion protection for $10. I see it on every estimate all the time, everywhere, regardless of state. I don't know where we agreed where corrosion protection is $10. I have seen an estimate from 1992, the year before I was born, where corrosion protection was $10. Now, if you're talking corrosion protection, chances are you mean cavity wax. That's the most common, one of the most common corrosion protections out there is cavity wax. If you're using 3M 08852, that lists for $55. If you're using SEM 39754, that's $52. If you're using half the can, if you're using a quarter of the can, it's not $10. You could do an adjusted body rate, but then you run into the same issue where not all body hours are materials intensive, right? If I'm R9ing a molding, there's no materials there. If I'm sectioning on a quarter panel, I'm using a ton of materials. Would this work with other physical goods? So let me play devil's advocate for a minute. Why don't you guys have a parts rate? Just a rate for parts, right? Have a $100 parts rate, multiply it by your body hours, and whatever the multiplication of those two numbers is what you get for parts. Well, turns out that wouldn't really be that accurate. It kind of matters whether you're working on a Chevy or a Bentley, whether you need a bumper or one of those laser HID headlights for like $9 grand, whatever they're up to now. So there's too much variability in repair to just multiply two numbers together. Are we all square there? Any questions on this? So I didn't just come up here to talk about problems. I have a little solution I'm going to show you, but if there's any questions on this stuff, you could ask now, I suppose. No, we're good? Cool. So I think rate pay is silly. And this is what me and my brother did about it. We built a company around this. This is our website, EagleMMS.com. We built an itemized invoicing program to bill any and all part numbers associated with vehicle repair. Most manufacturers out there who sell products will sell a solution for their products. We in-housed all the data from all the paint companies, all the allied brands. We have about 100 allied or 100 manufacturers in here total, with tens of thousands of part numbers. Body materials, paint materials, clips and fasteners, detail products. I don't care what it is. Any UPC that is involved in vehicle repair, you should be able to bill on an itemized basis. So that's what we did. I'm gonna show it to you guys real quick. So I'm gonna hit log in. If I put in my creds, I'll have access to my account. Ask me which location I wanna jump into. If I'm an MSO, I'm just gonna hop into my PPG demo account. Let me blow this up a bit. Can you guys see this? Maybe a little too much. All right. So this is my homepage. Homepage has materials invoice last 30 days, all my active ROs, some graphical metrics. I make a distinction in the system between realized cost and billable amount. So realized cost is cost to me when I purchase through distribution with my wholesale account. Billable amount is manufacturer list price, plus whatever markup I have applied. I'm not even applying markup today. I just use the system at list 99% of the time. So this is my price, my price versus list price here. Now the whole system gets based out of a digital inventory. And this inventory is a reflection of what you use. This looks a little bit different for everybody because everybody uses slightly different stuff. I've got 3D cutting compounds and polishes, 3M abrasives and tapes, some Aveco clips and fasteners, Kiko glue tabs, Evercoat fillers, LKQ products, PPG for my paint line, primers, sealers, clears, activators, reducers, cleaning solutions, some SEM stuff. I have SEM abrasives. I have some, easy coats, color coats, seam sealers, panel bonds, impact glues, all those tubes and aerosols. I got a bunch of stuff in here. This is everything I could bill. If I ever wanted to add inventory to my stock, I hit add new material, scroll through the EagleMMS database. These are all the manufacturers that we support and have data for. And let's say I wanted to add a U-pull part number. I'm going to hit UPO. I've already archived all those materials. I've done this demo way too many times, sorry. Let's hit a 3M part number. They have a massive catalog. So 4.3, there we go. This is everything with 4.3 in it. I could either quick add out of the menu if I know that's what I want, or if I hit review, it'll pull up the product information. So this looks like some type of grinding disc in a box of 80, average wholesale, manufacturer list. And then this checkbox tethers it to our internal database. Anytime that part number experiences a pricing change, we automatically update it for you. And just so you're aware, 3M in particular, I think their date this year is April 1st. I don't know what their weighted percentage is going to be on increase. So hit create, gets added to inventory. Now, if I want to bill something towards a job, I can hit 3 dots, manual checkout, select a repair order, select a quantity, and then give it the send treatment. Now, while that checkout transaction is pretty quick, I'm going to have to do that 100 and something times per car. I don't have time for that. It's kind of one of the drawbacks of conventional cabinet-driven systems is you offload that effort to your techs. They have to log in, check out each item. Becomes a hassle. So we have operation kits. In op kits, I could build and customize kits that have all my part numbers at a preset quantity. And then when I bill out the kit, it bills out all those materials in bulk. So let's just take my quarter kit, for example. I've got 32 UPCs in here, lists for $400, and that's pre-markup and pre-paint. That's just installation of panel. So let's open it up, see what I got in here. I've got my 1K and 2K seam sealers. I got coarse abrasives, blocking papers, fillers, glazes, primers, activators, weld throughs, cavity wax, masking tape, masking paper, the spot weld bit. I need to drill out the old quarter, file belts for grinding backsides, cutting discs, grinding discs, you name it. And if I ever wanted to make a change to the composition of this kit, I just hit my drop down, scroll through my inventory, add a product, set my quantity. Or in this case, if I don't need this, and I don't particularly need adhesion promoter for a quarter, I could hit delete, update, and that's how my kit gets saved. I could edit any kit at any time. I can create as many new kits as I want, and I could also duplicate kits. So if I want to create different versions of my quarter kit for different OEs or for different cert programs, not every quarter panel is born equal. When we set up shops, we set them up with the basic 30 operation kits for different size dents, structural installs, steel and aluminum stuff, door skins, roof skins, bed sides. Door skin should price you into a new door each time, by the way. I don't think door skins are financially viable as an operation anymore. And we set up your inventory as well. Now, best part is if you're not messing with your part numbers and you're not messing with your kits, you don't really need to worry about those 2 tabs. We do all of our writing in the materials calculator. So I'm going to show you how this process works. I'm going to make a little dud repair order. I'm going to put in an RO number, first, last name. I could decode VINs per NHTSA's database. I just don't have a VIN handy. So let's say I'm working on a GMC Acadia. Why not? Create. System's immediately going to ask me for 2 things. One, it wants a paint code, so it could price out my base coat. Think about that price category index. And 2, it wants a body style. So I'm going to hit this drop down that shows me everything that GM sprayed that year. If I hit like a G1W, it already knows it's a 3-stage, gives me a chip sample. This is a 2-stage tan. Hit my body style, and then I get this diagram below. Now, this diagram is interactive. I can click on it. and it's wired into all of the part numbers I have involved with refinish between prep and polish. So when I click on a panel, it's making an allotment to my invoice of my scuff pads, DA papers, masking tapes, masking papers, foam tapes, all of my sprayables, sealer, base, clear, tri-coats and additives if needed, and then all my detail products, wet sanding discs, buffing, polishing compounds. All that stuff at the click of a button. Now, depending on the panel dimensions and the level of refinish I select, it's gonna allot those materials a little differently. So let's just say I got 4 different refinish levels here. I got blend, that's base clear for color match. Repair blend will add a little bit of sealer to a repair area. Heavy repair blend adds more sealer, more base for a wider repair area. Then full refinish is full coverage of panel, each layer, pockets, edges, insides, and outs. So let's say on this GMC, I need a quarter panel, need to repair a door, blend a hatch. Let's say we're repairing a bumper too, why not? Below that, I have a structural view. I could select other refinishable elements I wouldn't be able to see with the panels on. I'll do a uniside. And then below that, I have accessory ops. So this is for really small parts painting that I can't render on diagram. Brackets, hinges, spray out cards. All these little items still eat up a considerable amount of fluid volume. So I'll do a couple spray outs. And then below that, I have all the op kits from the previous tab. So for this particular car, I'm gonna need I need to get my glass out of the way for that quarter, do my quarter replacement, bumper repair, and then I've got some damage on that door. So I'm gonna do a 2-hour glue pull as well. If I want to make any on-the-fly adjustments of the kit, I can also hit this little icon, pulls up the kit mapping. I can review it. If I want to remove something like, I don't need easy coater, I need to change a quantity of a material, I can do that on the fly. It'll highlight yellow to indicate that change. Below that, I have hardware. This renders everything out of my inventory categorized as hardware. I am quite talented at breaking clips, so I'm going to put a few of those. And then if there's any other checkouts I need to make, if there's something that wasn't in a kit or it's not a paint material, I could just search it out of my inventory. So let's say I'm topping this off on wash fluid. Hit add. Got some other options here for invoice format, but when I hit apply, it's going to compile all those material pathways, render me a total, and then print draft invoice. It'll give me my first draft of my bill here. So let me blow this up a bit. I've got shop info, vehicle info, grand total. This is almost $1,900 on a 4-panel job. And then below, 9V9 on the Enviro line just happens to be 36 cents a gram. The quantity is determined based on these surface area selections I've made. And then everything besides the base is list price on a part number out of my inventory. Primers, sealers, clears, activators, reducers, and then all of my non-fluid paint materials. We're really focused on fluids when we're talking about paint materials, but we got masking tapes, masking papers, wet sanding discs, buffing, polishing compounds, booth filter degradation, time for my bake cycle for propane and natural gas, tack rags, all that stuff. My disposable cups and liners. Here's just an example, because this one pisses me off. We've been writing $10 car bags since the beginning of time, right? $5 to $10. You know what other paint material you use all the time that's more than that? Disposable cups and liners. If you're buying part number 3M26,000, I think list on the box is like 120 bucks. No, that's wholesale. List is even higher. So wholesale price, your price, if you use 3-4 cups, sealer, base, clear, and it's gone, that's like 15 bucks in cups. So that's your price. Anywho, yeah, body materials, coarse abrasives, fillers, glazes, cartridges, aerosols, anything in a tube, anything in a rattle can, grinding discs, cutting discs, window urethanes, minutes on the trigger MIG welding for wire and gas, all that stuff. And then those clips that I broke too. So there's my invoice. If I need to make any changes to it, I can hit edit, bulk edit, and then all the table values go live. If I need to get rid of something, let's say I don't want to bill for gloves and I needed 2 tack rags instead of 1. I'm going to hit save, re-render that invoice. You'll see I'm now at 1885 instead of, what was I at before? 1882. So we added $3 whole of severity. Let's see what happens. And then if I go down to my paint section here, my Microflex gloves are gone, but my tack rag SX1070 set to 2, which is where I put it. So the mapping pathways are there to make a user's life easier, but it's not the gospel. If you need to change anything, you could change it. I also have the ability to import from scale. So I'm personally a fan of this one. If your technicians are properly logging the pour on the scale, I could pull that live pour into the invoice. We're integrated with all 5 major mixing systems: Axalta ColorNet Cloud, PPG Paint Manager, Axonoble Mix It, who am I forgetting? BASF, Refinity, and SmartTrack, the legacy systems. What's that? I fixed Refinity. Refinity was a pain in the ass. No, that's good now. We're fixed. What other paint make did I make? And Sherwin Collision Core, if I didn't mention them. So if I hit import, there's an exportable each system produces. If I drag that exportable into the window, it'll parse the data off of it and then give me a comparison between what Eagle estimated for volumes versus what the live pour volume was. Import, re-render. Every time I make a change to the invoice, it will update the PDF. And now I have layers, subcomponents, and subvolumes exactly the way my painter mixed it. But all of my other paint materials still the same. Those haven't been altered. So if you have techs that are, logging the pour, great feature to use. If they're not, don't use this feature because then it's going to undervalue the swap on estimated and live volumes. Just dragged in has nothing to do with this hypothetical job. So, $2,000 was probably more correct, but you never know. Sometimes you have a low coverage color. Sometimes, things happen in the booth, whatever have you. So I'm a fan of live pours when available. And I just want to mention again, that was zero markup. That's just list price. And honestly, are you due a markup? Sure. You have to inventory this product. You have to order it, stock it, shelve it, and you have to warranty it for the life of the repair. No one's driving to paint company headquarters if paint fails. They're coming back to your shop. So those are a cause for markup. But I could do so much with the system at list. I quite frankly don't, I'm not even worried about it. But that's a decision for you guys. Now, when I have this invoice, I have two options, right? What the hell do I do with this giant piece of paper? One, I could attach the PDF to the file in CCC and make my line item adjustment for the total. Or if I want to inject those elements directly into the estimate body, I can hit copy and paste notes. And the system will generate for me a plain text version of the invoice. And I could just copy it right to my clipboard. And then I don't have CCC on this because it's a Mac. But if I hit Control V, it'll dump all that information if I open up line notes. So if I make my materials adjustment line, open up notes, Control V, all the data gets dumped in there. This is kind of nice because it doesn't take up any lines and it doesn't get tagged up as, anytime you put a manual entry into CCC, it's going to get underlined, asterisk. I can't have that for 100 lines. It's going to raise some eyebrows. And I could also do it by section as well if I want. I can also change the categories of the invoice. So that was paint, body, hardware. I could get rid of categories. I could also do it by op kit. So maybe I want to make individual adjustment lines for each installation or repair kit. So now I'm going to have paint materials, right? My paint materials section. And then I'm going to have a kit for each op. So $33 on my glue pull, $130 on my glass, quarter panel replacement $411, bumper repair $100. So now I can make a bunch of atomic line items for kits, and I could break up the lines and put it back up in the estimate body with the assembly that it's relevant to, instead of putting some fat one-liners in miscellaneous where they're going to draw too much attention. Finally, last option here. This is really not my favorite option, but I understand it's a necessity. You can filter down this invoice into certain categories and subcategories as necessary for a claim. So maybe you're in a difficult market area. Maybe you're unsure about your ability to negotiate. Maybe you're a DRP. I don't know. I don't judge. I just want you guys to have all the tooling. If I wanted to remove the disposables off of an invoice, right, like sandpapers, masking tapes, that stuff kind of pisses them off. I'm not going to lie. If you hit print draft invoice here, you'll notice we lost, like $400 or $500 worth of severity. Jesus, I sound like an insurance person. I keep using that word severity. It's just something that's stuck in my lingo, and I haven't been able to lose it. But anyway, what's that? Yeah, that's fair. Well, I mean, this is going to go on a supplement, so it evens out. I'm safe, right? Don't kill me. So I'm at $1,900 now. I lost $400 or $500 worth of severity. But you'll notice this version of the invoice far more digestible. So I lost a small percentage of my ticket total, but I also removed the majority of the lines. So I just have my fluids, in this case, whatever was dispensed on car, and then body materials leaving with the vehicle. That's cartridges and aerosols. I'm going to use that term a lot. This is body materials leaving with the vehicle, AKA your taxables. And this is list price on partial quantities, for Christ's sake. I mean, I'm billing half a tube, and I don't really have to do that because, quite frankly, If that thing opens up to air, who wants to warranty it for the next job, right? I'd rather send it on 100% of tube with the car itself. But again, you could bite off just as much as you want to chew with this system. If you don't even want to mess with the P&M rate, let's say I don't want to do that subtraction between rate pay and my itemized totals. Let's say I just want to get some shop supplies, which there's no rate for at all, generally speaking. So if I hit filter mode, I could do body materials only. This is in addition to P&M. This is a $600 supplement right here in addition to P&M, just body materials. And if I want to remove the disposables from this, that's an option as well. Cartridges and canisters. I present this as the lowest hanging fruit. I almost have no denials on this one. It's literally list price on partial quantities of body materials leaving with the vehicle per P pages, not included in the P&M rate. And instead of writing, $10 corrosion protection, well, I've got rust preventer cavity wax, half a can, that's the 12-ounce can, $16.52, and I have my weld through half a can for $20. So here, my corrosion protection is $40, and I'm billing list on half of 2 cans, for crying out loud. Fillers, glazes, all that other stuff. Your taxables. You cannot undervalue cost of goods sold through a repair without having a potential sales tax issue. And I like bringing up Uncle Sam anytime I'm talking to an adjuster. So yeah, that's basically it. That's the main flow of the program. There's some other cherries on top I'm going to show you real quick. And then we're going to break out to a lovely insurance discussion, I'm sure. We generated an averages model of the system as well called GenEagle. Right, so I have the ability to invoice for your shop, list price on all of your part numbers, but what's like a materials estimate, right? We need a common ground to kind of stand on here. Well, I'm going to write that same exact car in GenEagle, right? What did I have? A 22 GMC Acadia in tan. I've never seen one in tan before, but why not? Oh boy, I'm not going to find that paint code again. I tell my brother to make a search feature here. That really, yeah, it's really nice that the software engineer solely responsible for the system is on speed dial. He's my brother, and I could bust his balls anytime I want. There we go, 10, bam. All right, average across all paint lines, epoxy backsides. That's a large SUV. Do the exact same selections. Replace quarter, repair door, blend hatch, repair bumper. With Unicide, yes please. And then instead of kits or part numbers, it's going to ask me what the substrate of the panels are. So I'm just going to put steel, and then I'm going to list the repair times. That's it. So let's say we had 4 on the bumper, plastic, 2 on the rear door, blend, blend, blend. I had 1 glass R&I. Customer name, RO. Check it out. It's going to give me a very similar invoice, or estimate rather, but instead of giving me a defined value, it's going to give me a minimum, maximum, and weighted average, not just for the total, but for each and every individual product, right? I take the average of every 1K seam sealer in my database, the average of every rust preventer in my database, the average of every 800 grit DA paper. This is very painstaking work, but it looks pretty cool, and this has some strategic value. I could produce a GenEagle on the front end of a claim, so I could start talking about real material costs, not multiplication of 2 numbers together. I could start that conversation day 1, so I have time to work the claim. And on the back end, supplement 1, I can provide my real MMS bill for what I actually used with my live pour and all my real materials. Or I could say, there's another way to use this. I could say, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Adjuster, fine, you don't owe me for my materials. I agree my materials are too damn expensive. You do owe me for the industry average, right? Industry standard. You ever heard that word? Well, I'm using it against them. That's my industry standard right there. That's the average of a whole database, tens of thousands of part numbers on an invoice. EPC calculator. This isn't totally live yet, but it's going to be soon. We were looking at, you know how EPC's been $3 for like half a century? I thought that was BS. So I, wanted to develop something for that, and it turns out you can calculate EPC using this formula. And this is free. You guys can take a picture of it, use it for yourselves. If you calculate your volume of VOC containing runoff, and then you divide that by the disposal fee of a standard 55-gallon drum, you'll get your real EPC. And what I discovered when I did this math by state is depending on what state you're in and how expensive it is to dispose of that drum and how much runoff you have, EPC is actually really between $8 and $30. If you're in California, Hawaii, it's very expensive to dispose of materials, federally regulated materials. And I put all the EPA codes there too. Now, I'm not saying 2025 is the year that shops are going to make a killing on EPC of all things, but for crying out loud, these are federally regulated materials. You shouldn't be losing money on them. And I think right now, everyone's losing like $10, $20 on EPC at least. And if you do 50 cars a month, that's $1,000. If you do that every month, it's 12 grand. That's a new piece of equipment, someone's health insurance benefits, it's something for somebody. And this isn't even a profit. That's literally your cost. That's what it costs you. I called a lot of disposal companies to get those fees by state. That was like a whole week on the phone. I think they talked to each other because as I was calling down the states, like, watch out, there's this weird Greek dude who's going to call you asking you about your disposal fees. Whatever, I don't care. Yeah, they all gave them. They gave me. So typically, EPC disposal is 3 fees. It's the drum disposal itself to dispose of the hazardous contents, fuel surcharge, and then delivery surcharge, and that's the total charge. Most companies. What else? Order portal. You can place orders with your jobber right out of the system. You can have as many users per location as you'd like. We have classes live every Thursday. Class 1 is the system and how to use it. Class 2 is a 2 hours long claims course. We're going over rights and limitations of policy, state reg, how to write a really good 3-way email, and how to communicate certain things with carriers and consumers. So this is free and unlimited for users only. We have a private Facebook group. I post memes there on a recurring basis. I got a meme folder on this computer. I'll show you guys one later. It's been cleared. I'm not going to get in trouble for it. Then we have I don't name any company. It's just a meme. Anyway, and then we have a resources tab. This has videos on everything I've discussed today, recordings of our classes, integrations with each of the mixing systems and estimating platforms. We integrate with CCC, Mitchell, WebBest via EMS. So if you have your EMS path set up, you could import your work orders. Documents with laws by state. And this is Illinois, so I think, paint capping is listed in your unfair claims practices. Yep, I'm going to control F it, see where, let's read it. There we go. All right, attempting to settle a claim for less than the amount to which a reasonable person would believe the claimant was entitled. We're not dealing with reasonable people. By reference to written or printed advertising material accompanying or made part of an application or establishing unreasonable caps or limits on paint or materials, I like that, when estimating vehicle repairs. So it's literally built into your admin code, valuable resource. Certainly make your customers also aware of it. But yeah, we have laws by state, DOI bulletins, some CCC articles. At one point, they had a help desk article basically saying that itemization is a preferable alternative to rate pay. I don't know what they did with this article. You might have to ask them. I don't know. Just poof, went missing one day. Some Collision Hub videos. This is just the free stuff on YouTube that I like. If you're interested in RTA, AOP, small claims, stuff like that. And then every SCRS article and every DEG inquiry that has to do with materials, because that's what I'm obsessed with. So a lot of resources here. And yeah, that's what we're about. Get paid for what you use.